Yeah, he just come full circle. Okay. Yeah, he's not gonna make it tonight. Shannon's not doing good today. Okay. Oh, that's everybody going downtown. They use their parking lot and walk downtown. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have 5:30. We'll call the regular November 2024 Quorum Court meeting to session, and ask you to please stand for a prayer by Justice Sowers and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Justice Sowers.
Father, I thank you for being here with us tonight. I thank you for the prosperity that you've shown this county and that you continue to show to us. Father, I thank you for keeping us all safe, and I thank you for just everything you do for us. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Ask clerk to call the roll.
Aaron Carruthers, Ronnie Tripp.
Here.
Philip Haney, Jackie Heflin.
Here.
David Ivy.
Here.
Mary Metz Blaylock.
Here.
Margaret Motley.
Here.
Lane Scott.
Here.
Jordan Sowers.
Here.
Bill Sparks.
Here.
Blake Tarpley.
Yes.
Tim Wittenberg.
Here.
Ronnie Wilbanks.
Here.
Recognize the presence of a quorum. Should have had a journal proceedings as emailed out. Do I have any discussions or questions? If not, entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Motion.
Second. Second, Ivy. Have a motion, have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports. We didn't have the need for personnel, but we did have budget. Justice Sparks.
Judge, we had 4 or 5 items, and everything was passed on before court.
Thank you, sir. Under correspondence, in your packets, you should have the recommendations from the my office on the county's behalf for the property and casualty, which will remain with AAC, and the insurance rates as provided for group health and the supplemental plans. If there's any discussion or questions, I'd entertain those. I think Terry's here if there's any direct questions. So I think I covered most of this in an email to you all last week where we discussed we did get a rate increase on health, and just because of reevaluation process, some of our properties, physical properties went up, vehicles and stuff like that stayed the same. So overall, not a bad hit. So if not, that will be a recommendation to the court on both actions. I'd entertain a motion to accept these recommendations.
Second.
Motion Ivy, second Sowers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record reflect the insurance were brought forth and passed. All right, I didn't see anybody that had signed up. Blake, could you check that one last time? All right, let the record reflect there were no comments from the public on the agenda items tonight. So that moves us right into item 1 of unfinished business, the final reading of the public safety tax. Justice Tarpley.
Yes, Judge, this is the final reading to public safety
tax, and I make a motion that we bring it to Florida for discussion.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Ask the clerk to read by title only.
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court, County of Pope, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance to levy a 0.75%, 0.75% of Pope County, Arkansas sales and use tax to establish a system for the rebate required by Act 29 of 1981 and for other purposes.
And this is the third and final reading, so discussion or questions. And I do have available tonight, if you want to get to any particular discussion, I have bond counsel represented, and I also have individuals from Cruz and Associates as a bonding company present for any direct questions you may have.
Nobody else has any questions?
Yes, Justice Ivy. Please pull your mics down too.
Oh, sorry. First one I was curious about, I guess I'm looking, I'm trying to remember if this is the second one. It's a question in general relating to all of it, but what would be our debt retirement? In other words, I'm looking at section 1 on, I believe the other section, it's like 89,900,000. But I'm just curious, is what would the debt retirement be if, you know, if we issue bonds and we have to make payments back? Any ideas?
Dan or somebody want to answer that question, please come to the podium, state your name so the record will have it, and may ask Justice Ivy to restate that so we can all.
I'm basically curious what the payment's gonna be and,
Yeah.
you know, how much interest we're gonna be paying on a payment and,
Yeah.
you know, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm David Downs from Cruz and Associates, so we're looking to be the underwriter on this transaction. Because of the nature of this tax and any excess of the debt service can go for operations, we're doing a 30-year financing to keep the payment as low as possible so that the county can have as much excess as possible. I'll pass out, I actually have a couple papers, if I'll go ahead and pass them out. We didn't want to get in too much detail tonight, as we're still 7 months out, and you know, Tuesday's election, it's really thrown a loop in interest rates, and as you know, the stock market's been going crazy. But well, I do have a brief update, so I'll go ahead and pass this out.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Oh, here, I got two.
I'm Dan Lovelady with Cruz and Associates, and one thing I did want to point out, that maximum debt that you referred to, the 89.5, I believe,
Yes, that's right.
that is maximum.
Right.
And we may or may not issue that total amount. We will only issue the amount that is needed.
And I think you'll note at the top of that first page, the last year or this year's collections based on 3/4 cent coincides with what Larry had told us previously coming up to this. And so that kind of coincides with what our treasurer had presented earlier.
Mhm. Yes, so we took the current penny that's outstanding in the county from the treasurer and just took 75% of that. So as you can see, the last 12 months, 12 months ended in August of '24 is the most current data we have. The county's collecting 11.1 million, and as the judge says, that coincides with what y'all are presented. I just wanted to show that page just to show the growth over the county in the last few years. Obviously, in 2019, internet sales kicked in, so 2020, it really went up, and then in the COVID years, as you know, it's spending and in the flux of money supply. If you want to just go ahead and turn to the second page, I think this will answer your question. So right now, we did 85 million to the project fund. I know the ordinance says not to exceed 89. That's just for any kind of contingencies, cushion, cost of issuance. But if you look in the far left column, that's the current market rates as of today. Average annual debt service for an $85 million project fund would be about 5.3 million in debt service, which would give a debt service coverage of 2.08, which is very healthy. And it would provide excess collections as of those rates of 5.7 in operation spending. So that kind of gives you an idea of what is going on right now. So the interest rate as of Tuesday is kind of in the mid fours up to 4.75. We've seen it dip as low as 4.25 over the last few months. But like I said, Tuesday with the election, Yesterday's rates went up 15 basis points, so almost 0.25% in one day. We do anticipate them to fluctuate, and hopefully by May, things will settle down as the new administration comes in. But I also ran a stress test, so plus 0.5% and minus 0.5%, so you can kind of see what can happen with interest rates going up and down, and then you can see that over 30 years, the excess collections can go from current market plus 0.5% down to 5.4 all the way up to 6 million. So we'd love to see those go down, because every penny it goes, or every percent it goes down is an extra penny for the county. But if you have any questions, I'll be free to answer those.
So it would be a safe assumption that the climate of next year is going to be more favorable than the climate tonight.
I hope so. I can't guarantee it. I don't have a crystal ball, but we sure hope so. So I think the Fed meets tomorrow, or there's guidance tomorrow, so hopefully we get some more answers. But we will love to come back and give more detail as we get closer. Like I said, with a May election, we still have quite a few months, 7 months out, so we didn't want to get too far in the weeds tonight. But
Would it be a fair statement to say that basically half the tax revenue would be for debt repayment, and half would be applied for operations if needed?
that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, as you can see, current market debt's a little bit lower than excess, 5.3 versus 5.7. So we'll always keep an eye on that. But yeah, with a 0.75% tax, the county can clearly afford to pay for this project. And well, yeah.
So that's an additional roughly 10 million a year on 0.75%.
11.1 million if you look on page 1, based on the
Oh, I
last
see.
12 months.
I
Yep.
got you.
And that's where I came up with the statement, Justice Ivy, that half could pay the debt, half would fill up operations. So,
Mhm.
And that's in addition to the 1% we currently have, right? So it'd be 1 3/4 total.
That's correct.
That's in addition.
Yes.
3/4 is in addition,
Yes, sir.
right? So
Yes,
it'd be
sir.
1 3/4. And there's no sunset on this at all.
correct.
Oh, they did. Great. This gentleman actually just reminded me that Fed did lower rates today by 0.25. I will say our bond rates, they are, I guess you could call it priced in. So the market, they have an assumption based on what the Fed is doing, that they already kind of trade on this before it actually happens. So our bond rates have gone up yesterday, and they were stable today, even with this lower. But yeah, we'll just keep an eye on it, and hopefully they'll go down. But in the grand scheme of things, over 30 years, still borrowing in mid 4s compared to what mortgage rates are right now. It's the bond market's still pretty favorable.
And just from a timing aspect, and we also have bond counsel from Mitchell Williams here if needed, but, and Larry can kind of piece some of this in. If this passes, you still have about a 3-month gap before you begin collections under the law, so collections could not begin till like next October, and so you wouldn't really have a bond issuance until the end of next year.
Yep.
So that gives, well, a year out from now to get more favorable rates, and even,
Yeah.
it'd even sway more in our favor, actually, so.
Yeah. And if rates stayed the same or even went up, an offset of collection growth, as you've seen as in page 1, the county's had some growth. So every dollar of an excess growth also will help. So
Justice Ivy.
Well, I'm going to vote yes for this. I do have a concern or two. I know the sunset is not in there, so I'm just wondering if it's absolutely necessary to do that addition every year from this point on. I mean, I know it allows us to do some projects, but at the same time, if we send this to the public, which is what we're doing here, I'm all for that, and if the public decides that's what they want to do, then that's what we need to do. So, and I think that's about all I had, but I'm going to support it, even though I'm a little concerned about that.
And part of the gravity of that question is we're doubling the capacity of our county jail. That's doubling medical cost, food cost, and so that's where the operational side really can't go away from that's what the sheriff and I have been telling all these groups. We would love for this to sunset, but we can't sunset it and then operate it. So That's just an
Well, I mean,
aspect.
I think I was referring to something, just a percent, part of that 3/4.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize that's gonna generate the 10 million a year, and we've got the debt service. But instead of having 10 million, with a debt service or whatever, we drop to maybe, 0.5 or 0.25. That's enough for operational purposes, which is what the concern about it is, once they're completed. So, but anyway, that, like I said, that's just kind of my thoughts.
Judge,
Justice Sparks.
Yeah, I too have intended from the very beginning to support this and certainly supported buying the land and all this. And what I think we've got to be very careful about though is, I think we've got to make sure we include as the public knowing what we're doing. I would like to have not had a special election, but that's the way we're gonna do it, and I would like to have seen a sunset, and we're not gonna do that. So I think we need to make sure that we take some opportunities to include the public, have some good public hearings, and I would recommend that these public hearings not necessarily be here at a Quorum Court meeting, so that people feel like it's a little,
Sure.
they're a little more free to talk and everything. For some reason, they usually don't like to talk too much when they come in here. But anyway, I would just stress that I think we need to do that. And I know recently we've heard about a potential jail being built, or prison being built over in western Arkansas, and apparently some of the folks didn't know it was coming, and that's not good.
And that's where the sheriff's at tonight.
So I would just say, let's do our very best, ladies and gentlemen, that we let the public know what we're doing, asking to spend $89 million, and but we've got to build a jail. I agree.
And a 911 center, that's a key component, I think, that we really, and the sheriff and I have spoken to no less than a dozen civic groups already, but we're gonna keep on that. We will have open, I think I can get tech to facilitate a lot of these open meetings. And, but the key component is also 911 being a part of this. So that's, they answered over 200,000 calls last year.
And if we can build it for less than 89,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
let's do it. Thank you.
Well, and.
Justice
and,
Wilbanks.
The other thing that hadn't been brought out tonight, but we've talked about before, is the fact, with this not sunsetting, there will be the means in play to expand it again, so we don't get in the position that we're in now, where the state's looking at shutting us down, and we don't have any recourse,
It keeps us from ever having to come back
We
and
won't
ask
have to
again.
come back and
Yeah.
ask again. That's the whole point. And that, when people ask me about, well, is this gonna end? That's how I explain to them that, it'll have to be expanded again before this ever goes out, so.
And of course, as this body's aware, the 1 cent county tax currently in effect with no sunset does not go to the county. We only get 44 100ths of that penny. And that's also a key concept of education, that, 60% of that 1 penny is going to our respective cities and not to the county, even though it's titled as a county tax. So. Justice Ivey.
This is probably gonna sound like a strange question, but there's been discussion that a large percentage of this actually doesn't come from people within the county. It's tourism, people stopping off to eat dinner off the Interstate 1. How do we track that?
Christy Graham gets a report from the state, and so most of that data is derived from Parks and Tourism. They do the analysis, and somehow through DFNA, they know, they came up with the figure the other day of 51 million visitors in the year 2023. And so they track that data. It historically has come from Parks and Tourism, their department, and then it goes to people like Christy Graham who can disseminate it out. So that's where we get that fact that over half of our sales tax revenues in Polk County come from out-of-county sources.
Yeah, I've got a question about, I think I wrote it down wrong. You said the current sales tax, we get 0.44 out of every,
Penny.
so
44
44%.
100. 44 100ths of a penny.
Yeah, so 44% of that,
Mhm.
okay, I did write it down right.
Yes, sir. Any other discussions or questions? If not, this is the third and final reading, requires a simple majority of 7. Without further questions, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Ronnie Tripp,
Yes.
Jackie Heflin,
Yes.
David Ivy,
Yes.
Mary Metz Blaylock,
Yes.
Margaret Motley,
Yes.
Lane Scott,
No.
Jordan Sowers,
Yes.
Bill Sparks,
Yes.
Blake Tarpley,
Yes.
Tim Wittenberg,
Yes.
Ronnie Wilbanks.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Item number 2 is the companion ordinance, and since Justice Haney is not here, Justice Tarpley, would you mind introducing that as well?
Yes, Judge, this is the third and final reading of the ordinance for calling for the special election for the sales tax and bond issuance. I recommend its approval.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Ask the clerk to read by title only.
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court, County of Pope, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance calling a special election in Pope County, Arkansas, for the purpose of submitting to the electors of the county the questions of the levy of a 3/4% 0.75% sales and use tax, issuing bonds under Amendment Number 62 to the Constitution of the State of Arkansas for the purpose of financing the cost of various capital improvements and pledging a 3/4% 0.75% sales and use tax for the purpose of retiring such bonds and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto.
Discussion or questions about this aspect of it? I'll remind the court, this will be in conjunction with the city, so the cost of such election will be split evenly with the city. And that's the reason it kind of coincided to have it on May 13th, because they were already having one. So this will reduce our election cost by 50%. No discussion or questions? I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Jackie Heflin,
Yes.
David Ivy,
Yes.
Mary Metz Blaylock,
Yes.
Margaret Motley,
Yes.
Lane Scott,
No.
Jordan Sowers,
Yes.
Bill Sparks,
Yes.
Blake Tarpley,
Yes.
Tim Wittenberg,
Yes.
Ronnie Wilbanks,
Yes.
Ronnie Tripp.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Item number 3, we move into new business. Justice Wittenberg.
Judge, this is an ordinance appropriating $20,000 from the general fund for the election commission department. I think this is what they received to help pay for the election, and I move for its adoption.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight. We appreciate you. Ask the clerk to read by title only.
Being enacted by the Quorum Court, County of Pope, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance appropriating $20,000 from the general fund for the election commission's department.
As Justice Wittenberg said, this is the reimbursement from the state for the March March or May primaries. We did March this year.
Yeah.
March.
March primaries. We have yet to receive reimbursement from the runoff part of that. So this is a reimbursement. Any discussion or questions? If not, ask clerk to call the roll.
David Ivy,
Yes.
Mary Metz Blaylock,
Yes.
Margaret Motley,
Yes.
Lane Scott,
Yes.
Jordan Sowers,
Yes.
Bill Sparks,
Yes.
Blake Tarpley,
Yes.
Tim Wittenberg,
Yes.
Ronnie Wilbanks,
Yes.
Ronnie Tripp,
Yes.
Jackie Heflin.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Item number 4 is an appropriation ordinance. Justice Motley.
Yes, Judge, this is an ordinance appropriating $4,800 from the EMS fund for the EMS department, and I move for its adoption.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Ask the clerk to read by title only.
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court, County of Pope, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance appropriating $4,800 from the EMS fund for the EMS department.
Discussion or questions? If not, ask clerk to call the roll.
Mary Metz Blaylock,
Yes.
Margaret Motley,
Yes.
Lane Scott,
Yes.
Jordan Sowers,
Yes.
Bill Sparks,
Yes.
Blake Tarpley,
Yes.
Tim Wittenberg,
Yes.
Ronnie Wilbanks,
Yes.
Ronnie Tripp,
Yes.
Jackie Heflin,
Yes.
David Ivy.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Item number 5 is an appropriation ordinance. Can somebody pick that one
I
up?
can take it.
Okay.
Justice Wittenberg.
Oh, this is the ordinance appropriating $27,901 from the road fund for the road department. I believe this was grant money that you received for a project, and I move for its adoption.
Second. Sowers.
Have a motion, have a second. Ask clerk to read by title only.
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court, County of Pope, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance appropriating $27,901 from the road fund for the road department.
Discussion or questions? Again, this is a unpaved roads grant, and we used it up on Silex Road. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Margaret Motley.
Yes.
Lane Scott.
Yes.
Jordan Sowers.
Yes.
Bill Sparks.
Yes.
Blake Tarpley.
Yes.
Tim Wittenberg.
Yes.
Ronnie Wilbanks.
Yes.
Ronnie Tripp.
Yes.
Jackie Heflin.
Yes.
David Ivy.
Yes.
Mary Metz Blaylock.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Item number 6, an appropriation ordinance. Justice Wittenberg.
Judge, this is another ordinance appropriating $35,000 from the Communications Facility and Equipment Fund for the Detention Center Department. This is so they can pay for the food for the rest of this year, and I move for its adoption.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Ask the clerk to read by title only.
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court, County of Pope, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance appropriating $35,000 from the Communications Facility and Equipment Fund for the Detention Centers Department.
Discussion or questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that where these funds normally come from, the communication, to buy for food?
I think it's
Yeah.
just transferring it out to help pay the bills, right?
Right, that fund builds up, and then they appropriate it out to where they need to expend it, and this is to pay some bills for the jail for the end of the year.
So the funds accumulate in the communications, even
Mhm.
though it's,
I think
even
it
though
comes
it's.
Yeah.
from commissary.
Right, it's that commissary fund that,
Commissary sells, and then that goes to that fund.
It goes to communications?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't ask me why.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't. Rowdy,
Well, I don't,
Rowdy was gonna come tonight, he
Okay.
got to feeling bad, so he didn't come. But it's basically money derived from commissary sales.
okay.
and that's where the state auditors tell us to put it.
Okay, well, I don't
Yeah.
care.
Pardon me?
Y'all selling that much stuff?
Oh,
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Sell a lot of, what do you call it, tobacco packs, or not tobacco,
Nicotine
nicotine
packs.
packs, couldn't
Yeah.
think of it.
Yes, and potato chips and,
Candy
other
bars and
Oh,
gums.
snacks and stuff, it is.
snacks.
Yeah, snack pack. Any other discussion or questions? If not, ask clerk to call the roll.
Lane Scott.
Yes.
Jordan Sowers.
Yes.
Bill Sparks.
Yes.
Blake Tarpley.
Yes.
Tim Wittenberg.
Yes.
Ronnie Wilbanks.
Yes.
Ronnie Tripp.
Yes.
Jackie Heflin.
Yes.
David Ivy.
Yes.
Mary Metz Blaylock.
Yes.
Margaret Motley.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Item number 7 is an appropriation ordinance. Justice Motley.
This is an ordinance appropriating $36.76 from the Public Safety Equipment Grant Fund for the Sheriff's Department, and I move for its adoption.
Second, Sowers.
Have a motion, have a second. Ask clerk to read by title only.
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court, County of Pope, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance appropriating $36.76 from the Public Safety Equipment Grant Fund for the Sheriff's Department.
And again, this is just to zero out that fund before the calendar year. Discussion or questions? If not, ask clerk to call the roll.
Jordan Sowers.
Yes.
Bill Sparks.
Yes.
Blake Tarpley.
Yes.
Tim Wittenberg.
Yes.
Ronnie Wilbanks.
Yes.
Ronnie Tripp.
Yes.
Jackie Heflin.
Yes.
David Ivy.
Yes.
Mary Metz Blaylock.
Yes.
Margaret Motley.
Yes.
Lane Scott.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Item number 8 is a transfer ordinance. Justice, well, somebody need to pick that one
I'll
up.
take it.
All right.
An ordinance to provide for the 2024 fiscal budget to transfer funds that were previously appropriated from the general fund for the sheriff's department, and I move for its adoption.
Second, Sowers.
Have a motion, have a second. Ask clerk to read by title only.
Be it enacted by the Quorum Court, County of Pope, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance to provide for the 2024 fiscal budget to transfer funds that were previously appropriated in the general fund for the Sheriff's Department.
Discussion or questions?
Can you explain that? I'm not
Yeah,
sure I
yeah,
understand.
that's what I was gonna ask.
Well, they combined the transfer request from Tuesday night into one ordinance, and it's just moving money within his budget to pay, what was I
Here's,
don't know if you had his request. So from machinery and equipment to computer software to general supplies and miscellaneous, looks like
Yeah, I see.
12,000, yeah.
Okay.
Chief, do you have any additional knowledge on that?
Let me start by saying, I've missed work the last 3 days because I've been sick. But over the weekend, I think it was maybe Saturday night or Friday night, part of our boiler system went out that provides heat to the entire building. And that part is very costly to fix and had to come in from out of state. Right now, we have no heat at anywhere in the sheriff's office, not in the jail, not in the office space or anything. Fortunately, the weather's great right now, we don't really need it, but that might be to pay for that.
Okay.
video, if you wanna see it, of water going everywhere back in the jail, when they had shut the pump down. It's pretty self-explanatory if you look at it.
You think we need a new jail?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you.
Put some duct tape and baling on it?
Sir,
Can't you put some duct tape and baling on
I think that's what happened to it.
Yeah.
Did that 2 years ago.
All right, well, thanks for that clarification. Anything else?
I believe that's correct,
Okay.
okay? Don't take that to be 100% correct, but that's my
Yeah,
understanding.
it can make a screen door float.
All right, ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bill Sparks.
Yes.
Blake Tarpley.
Yes.
Tim Wittenberg.
Yes.
Ronnie Wilbanks.
Yes.
Ronnie Tripp.
Yes.
Jackie Heflin.
Yes.
David Ivy.
Yes.
Mary Metz Blaylock.
Yes.
Margaret Motley.
Yes.
Lane Scott.
Yes.
Jordan Sowers.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Item number 9 should be in your packet. Notification of recycled and discarded materials. I think it was a couple old printers that were destroyed. So let the record reflect those notifications were made. Do I have any comments from the public? Let the record reflect no comments from the public. Under announcements, the county cleanup the other day, we had 679 vehicles come through.
That's great.
Dropping off all kinds of stuff. We took in 992 tires. And so another successful cleanup week. We don't have new elect JPs anywhere I see, but there's going to be a new elect JP class December 13th at AAC. I think most of our JPs are returning folks. So, Ms. McCall's a legislative auditor anyway, so I don't know if she'll need any training. But anybody that needs to go, Friday, December 13th. Election Commission, I think we made you aware, I know Bill and I conferred over it. We provided additional security during the elections. It was very well received. We had certified police officers at all the polling locations on Election Day and at the election headquarters for all early voting, and I think that was well received. Of course, the sheriff provides a vehicle, but we had off-duty officers come in and do that, and cost the county $8,235. So really pretty good bang for your buck, in my opinion, considering it covered all of early voting and then Election Day.
I think it made
So-
the people feel safer.
I got a lot of good positive responses. I know the chief went by there every morning and he got some good responses, but that dedication of that security to it was well received by the public.
I know the election workers really
Yeah.
appreciated
Yeah, I
it.
had a lot of feedback.
And Judge, I would like to say, I observed the people they had over there working were very polite and very helpful to the public. And they were helping people in and out with wheelchairs, and all that. But the officers that they had working over there were doing more than what I think they were expected to do, if that makes sense.
We thank you for that.
Just to put on your radar, don't forget next Tuesday and Wednesday begin at 5:30 are the budget hearings, and we'll try and get those knocked out. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised by Larry's report that we are sitting financially stable. All the budgets have been submitted and are within budget, and they and we have a healthy year ahead. It looks like. So that's
What
good.
time did we say?
5:30.
5:30?
5:30 Tuesday and Wednesday. And Justice Sparks, anything you want to add to that?
No, just encourage, make sure everybody's here. This is one of the more important nights of the year for us, I think. It sets us up for next year.
And also be thinking if you want, a thumb drive, if you want a book, if you want both, we'll be asking that. We'll have to get that, we'll need to know that so we can get all that done. So I'll probably have a sheet for you to fill out one of those 2 nights to let us know what we need to buy to provide those, what you need.
I had 2 or 3 officials had talked to me earlier, a couple of months ago, and I appreciate that.
Well, I sent you out a pretty detailed narrative last week about the projects, and one, if you want to go out in front and look, is going on as we speak, is the facade out front. It's really coming out great. That granite had become cracked and distressed, and so we've had a company come in and put kind of a slurry that would be kind of akin to I don't know, remind you of an adobe wall, but it's made just for doing this granite. And, I think the end result's gonna be real nice, and of course, they're laying the AstroTurf, they may still be out there right now, but, that's gonna pay for itself in the long run, because from what we were gonna have to input it to no maintenance. So it's gonna really make the courthouse front look a lot better.
Building's looking good.
Yeah.
I've seen them working on it.
We had to disconnect, they're fixing to take down all these light poles out front, and so they had to disconnect all the wires that were draping over the courthouse, so that's gonna give a cleaner effect. And we we pulled a bunch of old meters from the 1950s off the side of the building this morning. So a lot of going on around the building here.
Good.
For your planning, we're planning on doing the swearing in on noon, January 1st. Immediately following that, we will have our first quorum court meeting. We'll do the organizational and the January meeting. That way you're already gonna be here, let's just knock everything out at one time. So, put that on your agenda for noon, January 1st. Swear in, and then probably by the time that's done in pictures, it'll be 1 o'clock, so we'll anticipate starting the January quorum court meeting at 1 p.m. And be thinking of anything procedurally that you might want adjusted. I know the suggestion I made to the Budget and Personnel Committee is to become a committee of the whole. And that way, we've had 2 or 3 times this year where we couldn't have a meeting because we lacked a quorum at either, mainly a budget meeting. And so, if you become a committee of the whole, then we get enough people here who can still do business. And so, my recommendation would be to consider becoming a committee of the whole and take up all issues as a committee of the whole.
Are you saying there wouldn't be a budget committee?
Wouldn't be a budget or personnel. Well, you call it whatever you want. We can call it, we'll call it, yeah, it'd be a quorum court budget meeting or budget and personnel. It's whatever y'all want to title it. But it would just be, when we get a quorum here to show up, we can do business.
It would
And-
still be like now, you'll have a meeting on Tuesday night and then a
Right.
quorum court meeting on Thursday
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, we'll still have that, it just,
Budget committee, just a title.
right. So, yes, sir.
Got a question on the EMS building. When I was reading somewhere where there'd been an issue with a tree or something on, getting some lines through or something.
Oh, we had to redesign where the power was gonna come in because there were trees in the way, and it was gonna require us trying to get the landowner to cut all of his trees in his yard, and that wouldn't be right. And so we redesigned where the power was coming in, because Entergy will no longer work a live feed unless it's just an emergency. And it was gonna require cutting off all the power to 7 and I-40. All the restaurants, the old side, everybody had to be without power for 4 to 6 hours, all the hotels, while they did this. And so we redesigned it where it's coming in overhead and then drops underground at the facility. So,
Now, where's the entrance out onto Highway 7? Is there gonna be a new entrance cut, or how will we come out of there with our?
administration and everything will come out onto Highway 7. All the ambulances will come out behind the facility and go through the intersection that's controlled by a light. So,
There won't be any other lights or anything like that?
no.
Yeah.
And
Someone was asking.
RDOT preferred, we initially had 2 curb cuts. We were gonna have kind of like a horseshoe. They didn't wanna go for that. So now we have 1 curb cut, and it's distinct out there right now. You can see it, there's a dozer sitting in it. And so that will be the entrance to the front of the facility for patrons and for administration, while all the EMS emergency traffic will exit the rear of the building, which does have a horseshoe, so.
Thank you.
I have a question for our illustrious treasurer, and I'm not being satirical when I ask that. It has to do with this. I got several questions for you, Larry.
Larry, could you come to the podium and answer anything about the sales tax? I think it's sales tax source sheet.
Yep. It says local distribution. It refers to sources of each of these, right? This is where the money's coming from.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, well, I just have 2 questions. One of them is, warehousing and storage is a negative.
We talked about
Yes,
this
sir.
on Tuesday.
Yeah, that was what we went through Tuesday at
I'm
length.
not on that committee.
It,
Yeah.
You're fixing to be.
yeah. I'll let Larry explain. We had to provide a rebate in short terms.
And that was done through an audit, not through a rebate.
I figured it was a rebate, but.
Well, if you look under the
Sure.
column, it says audit. So the sales tax division, they have auditors just like legislative audit has auditors. And so they went to a facility and did an audit on that facility and found that tax has been overpaid by that facility. I visited with an individual with sales tax. I talk to him all the time when we have questions and giving you information. And so he can't give me the business. He can't give me any of that. That's private information. But that's why it's under that category, and that's all he can tell me.
The other question I have is, where would banks show up here?
I'm not sure that banks charge a
Yeah,
sales tax.
Okay, yeah.
Not to my knowledge. They charge fees. But Blake might could help you more with that, but I don't believe banks do any type of sales tax at all. They just charge fees for different things, like for your debit card and your credit card and so forth like that.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Don't charge us.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Well done.
Another good thing Larry covered, and on behalf of Jennifer, we're at nearly 98% of tax collections, which is almost a new record. And we still have a six-figure taxpayer that has yet to pay. So that will come in, it's not a matter of they're not gonna pay, they just are kinda unaware.
I got
Yeah. So we're gonna get it, but there's still six figures owed, and so that puts Jennifer's team at the top of their game. So,
You don't see 97.5 or 6 or 7 in the state of Arkansas. Everybody doesn't do that. And that's a contribute to the tax collector's office.
You're saying if we had a turnip, she could get blood out of it?
If anybody could, she could.
Carries a big stick.
Yes, sir.
any other questions for Larry? All right. Only other thing I show is Mr. Robin has got his duty. Just one. I think it's Justice Ivy.
Oh.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
We're going to remind you.
Thanks.
Go ahead, sir.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ivy. Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
Any other items bring before the court, other than a motion to adjourn? I have a motion, to have a second? I have a motion, to have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Show us adjourned at 6:11 PM. See y'all Tuesday.
Bringing my snacks.
Good.